สวัสดีค่ะ Very good evening and welcome to Thai PBS World Tonight. We keep you updated on COVID-19 in Thailand and around the world. I am Natha Gomonwadin live from Thai PBS studio in Bangkok and Kun Thep Chayong is now joining me online from home. สวัสดีค่ะคุณเทพชัย
Swadikap Kunatha, good evening everyone. So finally, starting this Sunday, May the 3rd, we will have some semblance of normalcy return to Bangkok and the rest of the country. So we can go out for dining in restaurants and we can go out for some outdoor exercises for some recreation activities. So good news.
Yes, some activities will resume but not 100% the same as like before COVID-19. That is for sure, คุณเทพชัย because even though some business activities will be relaxed, but it has to bring up with new style of facilities and new style of services because we are still living with COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, a lot of social distancing measures still need to be observed. It doesn't mean that things are returning to normal right away or in total. And as the spokesman of the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, Dr. Tavisin Visunuyotin, emphasized again today that now it has become the responsibility of everyone in the society to help make sure that there won't be a resurgence of the virus. That means that we need to make sure that even though life is returning to normal to some extent, but everyone has to make sure that all these social distancing measures will be strictly observed. So everyone has a duty to make sure that this will be the case.
Yes, all of us have to help one another in order to fight this COVID-19 pandemic. And this can be called the first phase of ease of the lockdown, and they will have to observe what the result will be coming out after 14 days. And if the new cases of infection lower than 30, perhaps they will try to relax in the second phase of the ease of the lockdown.
Yeah, and now so the next 14 days will be very crucial because the authorities will keep a close watch on how these things will turn out after the stringent measures are relaxed, whether or not people will cooperate enough to make sure that there will be enough of social distancing that people will not be exposed to contracting the disease.
That's right. And let's take a look for what happened today. It's 4 days in a row, คุณเทพชัย in which new cases of infection below 10. Today, new case of infection is 7 and no new death. And the case of infection come from returnees who come back to Thailand and people who are in state quarantine and in active case finding. So in some, no new case from local infection for monitoring and health service system.
Yeah, this is interesting because Dr. Tavisin made it a point to mention the 4 of the new cases today. The 4 were a result of the so-called, as Kunatha said, active case finding. Medical authorities have over the past many days been engaging in so-called active finding over the past several days among target communities. So if they believe that there are certain communities that could be infections among the people in there, so they would do this so-called active case finding. The aim is to detect the contagious disease, and those who are tested positive will be put under state quarantine to reduce potential transmission. So this is sort of an offensive measure by the medical authorities to find the people who might be infected with the virus and then isolate them, put them on state quarantine to make sure that they do not spread the virus. So that means that there could be more numbers of new cases in the next few days if these so-called active case findings continues.
That's right. And now let's take a look of what are the measures that still have to be maintained from now on. Like what we know for sure is the extension of the state of emergency. And the curfew have to be maintained from 10 p.m. until 4 a.m. Still the ban on sales of alcohol and ban on mass gatherings and non-essential inter-provincial travel. This is still very crucial, Kun Thepchai, because the government doesn't want to encourage too much traveling, especially between provinces.
Yeah, and the next few days will be important because there will be long holidays. And the government hopes that people will not take that opportunity to travel back to their hometowns in the provinces.
That's right. And they still have to maintain strict control of international flights. This is very strict control, and the inbound flight, commercial inbound flights cannot take place anytime soon, at least until 31st of May, because as we have reported, new cases of infection tend to come from Thai returnees from abroad. That's why they still have to be careful. And with tourism, new arrival cannot enter Thailand yet, like Chinese tourists cannot allow to enter Thailand at this very moment. And also they maintain 14-day state quarantine for overseas arrival. And working from home still have to be maintained at least for 50% of the workforce.
Now we have been talking to a number of state agencies and private companies, and most reported that they have been complying with this work from home directive. And I talked to one of the ministries, people in one ministry today, and they said that 70% of their workforce is now working from home. So, and they intend to keep it that way, at least in compliance with the directive that will still be in place for the next 1 month. So I think the reason is quite clear, because if more people are back on the streets, going to work as they used to, then the chance of containing the spread of the virus will be even smaller. So that's why this work from home directive still needs to be maintained.
But I can notice, Kun Thepchai, in the past few days, we can see clearly that traffic is much busier than before, more cars on the road. That perhaps because people feel relaxed and they would like to resume normal activity back again.
That's right, yeah. As Kun Natha mentioned, that what we just reported are just the first stage of the relaxation of the disease control restrictions. And this will be applied nationwide. But governor of each of the provinces has the authority to impose stricter measures to deal with the pandemic if necessary. But they cannot resort to measures less stringent than what was announced by the CCSA today. So that means that governor of each of the provinces has the authority to really make sure that these new measures are complied with. But if there is a slip, and say if there is sudden evidence of a resurgence of the disease, then the governor has the authority to impose stricter measures to make sure that that doesn't happen.
So that means the benchmark of all the rules of the stringent measure is governed or identified by Center of COVID-19 Situation Administration, or CCSA, in which each province has to comply with the guideline and rules from CCSA.
Yeah.
And now,
but what got the attention of most people today was the announcement of the businesses and social activities that can resume starting this Sunday, Kunatha.
Yes. Now let's take a look what are business activities that can reopen this Sunday. The first group are markets. All types of market, including wet, community and floating markets, walking streets, roadside vendors can resume. So that
basically it means that our markets that we are familiar with will resume business as usual starting this Sunday. Every type of market that have been the livelihood, the lifeline of Bangkokians will resume their business starting this Sunday.
Yes, because if you are familiar with Bangkok life, you will know how street vendors food vendors or all the local informal economy are really important, like bloodlight of Bangkok. Also, eateries are allowed to reopen Kun Thep Chai, restaurants, food shops, coffee shops, ice cream parlors, and food trucks are allowed to reopen as well. These are also very important for Bangkok people and Thai people.
Yeah, but except for restaurants and food shops in department stores and shopping malls, those are not yet allowed to reopen this Sunday. So there will be another period of 14 days for the authorities to observe the result of this relaxation of the measures. And then after 14 days, they will evaluate and come up with a decision whether or not to continue with the relaxation or even to expand it to cover other aspects of the businesses and social activities.
The third group of business that can reopen is retail businesses. Supermarket, convenience stores, including dine-in sections, mobile grocery stores, community retail stores, and mobile phone shops are allowed to reopen this Sunday. So that can be including IT, telecom products, mobile products that can be returning to near normal. But of course, the facility arrangement in each shop will have to be maintained to comply with the new guideline to keep social distancing.
And then we have sports and social activities. And so that means that starting this Sunday, recreation activities in public park, outdoor exercises and sport activities, with the exception of body contact and team sports, will be allowed to resume.
Yes.
Of course, outdoors, sports, include tennis, badminton, and archery. So the people who love to exercise now will have a good chance to go back to their courts, to the playgrounds, and resume their favorite activities.
Team sport mean football, basketball, or other team sports cannot resume at this stage. Only walking, jogging, or just one-person activity. Another type of business are beauty and hair salons can reopen, like only for haircut, hair wash, and blow drying services. And other business activities, including pet grooming salons and clinics, and that will be effective from this Sunday until 31st of May.
So these are the businesses and social activities that will go back to life again with some limitations, of course, starting this Sunday. Of course, good news for all these proprietors, all these small, medium-sized businesses, which have suffered quite heavily from the economic impact of the pandemic.
Yes, the government planned 4 stages of relaxation, Kun Thep Chai, so this will be the first stage. The next one will have to take 2 full months for reassessment and for full reopening of all activities, provided the number of new cases is manageable. And they plan, what they aim at is to have new infection do not exceed 30 in 14 days after the reopening of and more relaxation that would be coming. So the next 14 days are quite crucial for the first phase of evaluation after reopening.
Of all the 10 ASEAN countries, Vietnam seems to be gaining a lot of international plaudits for what is seen as its success in containing the spread of the virus quite effectively. And now the country is on the verge of lifting the lockdown that has been in place for many weeks now. And it goes to show that Vietnam is confident that with the lifting of the lockdown, the countries can move forward quickly, economically at least. Of course, when there are still concerns whether or not there could be a second wave of the virus. But judging from the the numbers of the infection cases in Vietnam, Kunata, it looks like Vietnam has been quite effective in dealing with the crisis.
That's right. As of now, the country has confirmed 270 cases of COVID-19 so far, and about 219 patients have been recovered, and amazingly, without any death at all, Kun Thepchai. And right now we have Ambassador Tanee Sangrat, Ambassador of Thailand to Vietnam, joining us live from Hanoi. Good evening, Ambassador.
Good evening, Kunata and Kun Thepchai.
Ambassador, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Today's a holiday. It's a victory day in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, it's a great day
It's a national holiday.
very important day for Vietnamese. I mean, remembering the day that the Vietnamese, not Vietnamese tanks rolled into the presidential palace in Saigon, right?
That's right.
What's the mood over there, Ambassador?
I think the mood, everything has to do with COVID now. In many countries, including Vietnam. The mood in Hanoi and in Vietnam is that the life is getting back to normal. Many business establishments are opening. The government has declared a relax of measures so that schools are reopening again. Many restaurants, hotels, sports training facilities are opening again. Of course, with the control measures are still in place. For example, social distancing and other preventive measures are still in place. Except for other bars and nightclubs, many non-essential services remain closed according to the government order.
How has life been different in the past month? Has it changed a lot during social distancing period for Vietnamese people?
Well, Vietnamese people follow the government advice and regulations quite strictly. They have very high discipline, and the government of Vietnam has implemented the measures by the textbook, meaning that they have instituted the measures very early in this stage. One of the first countries to stop the flights directly from Wuhan and China, for example. And right now in Vietnam, there's still some 69,000 people being quarantined all over the country. They're taking this coronavirus very seriously, and the people are very understanding. But now they are, after several weeks of quarantining inside their own houses, they're beginning to get itchy, and they want to come out and celebrate their so-called success in the fight against coronavirus.
You know, of all the ASEAN countries, Vietnam now stands out as an example of success in dealing with the crisis, and it has won international praise for its effectiveness in dealing with the virus. So, Mr. Ambassador, what do you think are some of the factors that make Vietnam so exceptional in this situation? Things that we can learn from Vietnam.
I think Vietnam it's a very disciplined country. They have a very strong central government, and the provinces follow the directions from the central government quite strictly. And also the government did not worry so much about the economy, because their economy has been growing 6-7% over the past several years. And so the Prime Minister of Vietnam has said clearly that the health of the Vietnamese people comes first before the economy. So Vietnam has implemented quite a bit of pill to control the virus. So far, there's still 270 cases of infections, and there have been no new cases for the past 14 days, meaning no new community transmission. over the past 14 days. And there are no fatalities,
that's great.
no Thai infected. I'm very happy about that. The country has discharged some 219 patients. So there are now only 51 people being treated in the hospital.
And Ambassador, you said people are quite comply with the measure by the government. And what about economic impact? Because we know that Vietnamese street food vendors are really important as well. So how are these small and medium-sized businesses have been affected?
Well, the economy has taken a heavy toll in this struggle, and Vietnam is, as you know, is chair of ASEAN and also is a member of the UN Security Council. So Vietnam takes this 2020 as a very important year for them. That's why they have want to take care of the coronavirus very early and want to get it done very quickly. So the GDP of the first quarter of 2020 in Vietnam is only 3.82%. That's still growing. For Vietnam, that's the growth that is lowest in 10 years. For a country, for a fast-growing country like Vietnam, that's a low number. But compared to many ASEAN countries, Vietnam is still growing, and people would look at Vietnam as a very fortunate country that's still growing. So after the second quarter, hopefully Vietnam will come back in the third quarter or fourth quarter. So many forecasts of the GDP growth for Vietnam will be positive for the year 2020.
Mr. Ambassador, in the case of China, some Western countries have raised questions about the transparency of the information regarding the spread of the virus there, and then there's questions about the credibility of the statistic in China. But what about in Vietnam? Is there an issue with transparency, with statistic that the government has putting out? Because of course people may have question about the such a low infection rate in Vietnam. But is it an issue there in Vietnam?
Every country has its critics, including Vietnam. And when Vietnam reported quite low numbers in the beginning, and people point to Vietnam and to the transparency of the government. Mind you, Vietnam has its fair share of super spreaders as well. For example, there were a few super spreaders in Hanoi, and the government took immediate measures to block off that neighborhood. And I even drove by and checked out that area as well to make sure that the situation is being implemented. And Hanoi is not the only one spreader that took place in Hanoi, but also there was super spreaders cases in Ho Chi Minh City as well. So and
that has been openly reported about,
multiplied
right?
Quite quickly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And this super spread has been reported openly
Yes.
by the media there, right?
Yes. Yes. Vietnam is quite a different country now. There are tourists all over the country. There are foreigners, expats working all over the country of Vietnam. Thailand is a very high-ranking investment country in Vietnam as well. We're number 10. We put in over $10 billion in Vietnam. We're number one trading partner of Vietnam in ASEAN as well. So Vietnam has millions of tourists all over the country, and so the question of transparency may be a question of in the old times of Vietnam.
Ambassador, and what about the issue of testing? Do you think, or what's the number of testing has been done in Vietnam on COVID-19? Has it done quite a good number?
Yes, there's been a number of testing in Vietnam as well. Vietnam has come up with its own kits, testing kits, rapid tests as well. The number, I think Vietnam has taken the approach of fight against the coronavirus with limited budget country. Vietnam is still a developing country. So I think similar to Thailand, we test in Vietnam, we test for in high-risk area all over the country to focus to find infections, and the test is not like the model of South Korea or a European country where they test hundreds of thousands of patients.
So shall we say that it's business as usual right now in Vietnam?
Pretty much. If you walk around in Hanoi, in Ho Chi Minh City, people have come out in full force. I think they are quite excited to be back with their own lives. The traffic is, I think, almost up to 100%, and the air quality has deteriorated to the point where it was before COVID. Meaning similar to Bangkok, by the way.
Nice.
In Hanoi.
Nice. Mr. Ambassador, as you know, that Thailand is about to ease many of the stringent shutdown measures starting this Sunday, right? What about in Vietnam? What is the timeline for the? We know that the country is moving toward the lifting of the lockdown. So what is the timeline for this?
Vietnam has implemented the ease of measures already, meaning that most provinces and cities, including Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, have now the measures have now been relaxed, except for some high-risk areas where gatherings are still prohibited. So this will go on for a number of weeks in Vietnam, and the government is quite watchful for the results. Vietnam is a little bit a step ahead in terms of progress compared to Thailand.
Right.
So I think but together we are moving in the same direction.
And what about Chinese tourists? Can they travel to Vietnam anytime soon, or have they already been travel to Vietnam again already?
No, similar to Thailand, tourists and foreigners are still prohibited to enter the country. Only those with work permits, or only those who come to work with special skills are allowed, and they have to ask for visas. Similar measure as Thailand. And there's still many tourists still stranded inside the country as well, Vietnam.
So what is life like for ambassador like yourself and your colleagues in the diplomatic community under the lockdown?
We have our own self-quarantine as well. We have cut down on our consular hours, because our consular, no tourists, they don't ask to come for visas at our embassy. We focus more and more on coronavirus in providing assistance to Thai nationals in Vietnam. We just facilitated a special flight, repatriation flight on April 22nd, one of the first repatriation flights to Bangkok actually. And now we have a number of tourists and Thai people who are still stranded in Vietnam, and we are organizing another mission on the 9th of May. Now
how many
we
of
are
them?
working with
These Thais, how many of them?
Airlines to send them by cargo flight.
Okay.
Actually, on
How many
passenger
of them,
seats.
ambassador? How many of them?
We have 20. I have to ask for a quota, as you know. I have to ask for a quota for permission from the COVID situation committee through Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through the help of our consular department, and thanks to all of the agency concerned who facilitated our flight on April 22nd. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of my colleagues and all of the agency. Everything went smoothly. People were happy, and we're still chatting through our line group with people who are still being detained right now in Thailand, who we sent back from Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City.
I see.
So are there still lots of Thai people in Vietnam still in the queue to return to Thailand?
The next group is 20 people in Hanoi. We have a couple of sick people who are in need of medical attention right away, and they want to return home to do that. And we have a new mother with a young born. We have students. These people have the priority according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Department of Consular Affairs. These people have the priority compared to people who live and work as expats in Vietnam. So those people, they have their apartments, they have their life here. They, like us diplomats, we live and work here sort of for long periods.
Ambassador, today is national holiday in Vietnam. So what's their plan to commemorate today as Victory Day for Saigon?
Well, it's actually a big day for Vietnam. This morning, my residence is right near the mausoleum. I saw in the news that the whole government now presented flowers and pay respect to the late President Ho Chi Minh. This as an official ceremony. And many people in Hanoi and all over the country are celebrating today as well.
Yes, but is it new normal way of celebration?
I don't see a lot of difference because people in Hanoi and in Vietnam have always worn their masks all the time already. So people on the motorcycles, they walk around on the streets, and people they look the same. There's just a bit more distance between themselves.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us and keep us posted about what's going on in Vietnam. Thank you very much indeed, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you
joining
very much,
us.
Vinata.
Be safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's quite amazing, Kun Thepchai, no death at all in Vietnam.
Yeah, I think it's, as Mr. Ambassador explained, Vietnam moved very quickly and did the testing quite comprehensively in dealing with suspected cases. And of course, most importantly, that Vietnam is a very disciplined country. A central government will exercise very strong power over the society. So people tend to comply with whatever measures that the government handed out. So that's one explanation why Vietnam has been more successful than many other countries in containing the spread of the virus. Yeah.
And right now, around the world, when we talk about epicenter of coronavirus, we know that it started from China and then went to Europe and the US. And right now, the new epicenter probably could be in South America. And already we have got reports that domestic violence among family in South America has been increasing quite dramatically. Let's take a look at this story.
Fear ran through my body. I'll be honest, and I said, today all this ends. Today I'm gonna make the decision and I'm gonna leave. Where? How? I don't know. I didn't plan it. This is the voice from a Mexican woman who survived from the violence. Besides the terribleness of the pandemic, Latin women also have to live in the fear because of the violence. Weeks of confinement imposed by the coronavirus pandemic is taking a chilling toll on women and girls across Latin America, where the number of calls to helplines have soared, made by victims of domestic violence who cannot flee. Victoria Guerre from the Argentine NGO Mumala which campaigns against violence related to macho culture, says, "The confinement is plunging thousands of women into hell, trapped with the attacker, who they are more afraid of than the coronavirus." A staggering 3,800 women were murdered in Latin America in 2019, an 8% increase on the previous year, according to the preliminary data from the Observatory of Gender Equality at CEPAL of the UN's Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Wendy Figueroa, coordinator of the National Network of Shelters for Women, says she saw a very significant increase in phone calls, distress messages, counseling, either on social networks or by mail, of 60%. And in the first 3 weeks of this campaign, there was a 5% increase to shelters nationwide. Until today, they still don't have a clear, comprehensive strategy that will be implemented to address the COVID-19 with an intercultural approach, a human rights approach, and gender perspective. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, issued a call for a domestic violence ceasefire as lockdowns extended into April. He says, "Unfortunately, many women and girls are particularly exposed to violence precisely where they should be protected in their own homes." According to the information from National Women's Institute in Mexico City, emergency calls have increased since the start of the lockdown on March 24, and estimated that around 200 women have been murdered since quarantine measures began.
And another clear economic impact is now on airlines around the world in which their fleet has to be grounded. They cannot fly because of coronavirus pandemic and its big effect on staff in aviation industry. And right now, Kun Nat Bunnak is joining us.
Hello.
Hello, Kun Nat.
Hello.
Kun Nat, so what's going on with airlines industry around the world? How badly are they being affected right now by the virus?
We can say that the whole industry is facing such a it's definitely a very hard time for the aviation industry as well as the related businesses that are they are like together. So the aviation industry as well as the tourism industry are sort of related together. So they have had a huge effect from COVID-19. So according to the International Air Transport Association, or the IATA, they said that around 25 million jobs in aviation industry, including related businesses, are at risk from COVID-19, whether it's getting laid off or getting their salaries cut. And it is also expected that the airline passenger revenue for this year would decrease up to $314 billion this year. So we can say that this is not a good year for the aviation industry at all here because of COVID-19. And we can see that many airlines, including air manufacturers, have already experienced losses during the first quarter of the year. So for example, Airbus and Boeing, which are the giants of air manufacturing, they already announced first quarter losses already. So Airbus has announced $515 million in the first quarter. They already lost $515 million already, whilst Boeing already announced a first quarter loss of $641 million. So we can see that even the biggest names in the industry are already facing such a crisis, and both air manufacturers have already canceled their productions as well as canceling their deliveries to their customers because of the crisis. And even more than that, they already decided to lay off their staff by at least 10% there.
Very devastating news indeed for aviation and airline industry around the world. It's very unprecedented. And how
Yes.
each airlines cope with this outbreak?
I would say every single airline is on the same boat right now because every single airline has to face with cutting flights and not flying for the past couple of months already because of the pandemic. So they had no choice apart from laying off their staff or asking their staff to take leave without pay, as well as other things. So, for example, the very most recent case was with British Airways. Its parent company, IAG, already suffered 13% of losses in revenue in the first quarter of this year and is expected to get worse in the second quarter. So they already plan to cut more than 12,000 jobs for the industry here. And British Airways has employed more than 40,000 people, including pilots and cabin crew. So to cut jobs, it's such a hard decision for them here because cutting jobs is definitely something that they really do not want to do, but they really have to do it because of the pandemic here. Other cases include Air Canada that already laid off more than 16,000 workers, but they had to rehire them again because there was a government relief package for businesses there. And even for Cathay Pacific, they also offered unpaid leave for employees. So we can see that every single airline is facing the same situation here. So because of COVID-19, they had to make a decision that they really do not want to do, is to cut staff and to cut costs here.
All the big names of airlines are being badly affected. It's very challenging situation indeed, Kun Thepchai, especially what will happen next for very well-known airlines around the world.
Yeah, and of course the Thai national flag carrier, the Thai International, is also in the big troubles. And as we have learned that the Finance Ministry has finally decided to throw the airline a lifeline, extending some credit line that will help it survive this challenge. But of course, it's a big question mark, not only for Thai International, but for most airlines, because it would certainly take them quite a long time to recover from this crisis, because it's a crisis that they have never experienced before. Yeah.
For Thai Airways, it's not any different from any airline around the world, but what has been worse for Thai Airways is the financial situation there. There has been some interesting information. So according to the Stock Exchange of Thailand, Thai Airways has already posted a net loss up to 12 billion baht last year. And if you look at previous years, they already experienced losses up to 11.6 billion back in 2018 and 2.11 billion in 2017. So we can see that Thai Airways has already been experiencing financial issues even before COVID-19. So this is definitely a very hard time for Thai Airways as well. So we have to see how it goes for Thai Airways and how they're going to deal with the situation. And besides Thai Airways, there are comments from the CEO of Airbus that made a comment on the whole aviation industry. The crisis we're facing right now, it might take more than 3 to 5 years in order for the whole industry to recover from the pandemic, and even for the passengers to feel really confident in flying and using their services again. So it's definitely a hard situation, not only for the airlines, but it's the entire industry as a whole, whether it's tourism or even air cargo as well here.
Very difficult issue indeed. Thank you very much, Kun Nat, for the story
Thank you.
about airline industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kun Thepchai, last night, Trump have a very important meeting with leading expert in public health and governor of Louisiana. And he has something to updated with the whole nation in the US, especially on trying to speed up the testing of vaccine as soon as possible, because he told Americans that he'd like to finish and to come to the end of the pandemic as soon as possible. And last night he made comment at a round table with industry executives at the White House. And he said he's trying to get the drug out fast as he can. So let's take a look and let's take a listen what he told the whole industry.
We're looking for therapeutics also. I mean, I think therapeutics right now, I'd rather, if you gave me both, I'd rather have the therapy, because that, makes people better right now. Whether it's helping them along or makes them better almost instantly, we have to see. But there's tremendous work on therapeutics going on, and I think we're having some good results. One of them was Gilead today. Different things. I want them to go as quickly as they can. Stephen Hahn, Dr. Hahn, has been incredible at the FDA. He's getting things done at record time. There's never been anything like it. And yeah, we want everything to be safe, but we would like to see very quick approvals, especially with things that work.
And surprisingly, Dow Jones has responded quite positive after the news that President Trump is trying to get the vaccine and some medicine as soon as possible to try to end the pandemic. So that's how the US president is dealing with the issue, Kun Thepchai.
Yeah, and we need to see how this thing will turn out eventually, because he has been wrong on many issues related to the coronavirus before.
And now we have one politician joining us, and let's listen to what he would like to propose to solve the crisis during this coronavirus pandemic in Thailand. Right now we have Kun Pita Limjaroenrat, leader of Move Forward Party. Good evening, Kun Pita.
Good evening. How are you both?
I'm good, thank you. And you yourself? It looks like you need a haircut.
Doing well.
Starting this Sunday.
Doing just fine. It's an honor to be on your show. It's quite unfortunate that our first meeting is from afar, but all in all, pretty happy to be here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Kun Pita, as you know that starting this Sunday, some semblance of normalcy will return to the country. You can go out for dining and do some limited shopping, to do some outdoor exercises. But the more stringent shutdown measures, such as the state of emergency and the curfew, still remains. So do you think that the relaxation of some of the shutdown measures announced by the government today are enough and to reopen the economy and lessen the hardships suffered by the people?
Well, I think we have to strike the balance between public health and economy. While I understand government's focus on preventing the second spread of COVID virus 19, nonetheless, I have been hearing heartbreaking stories of hope postponed, of assistance canceled, and dreams shattered from all walks of life, be it a mother of a child looking for milk for her children, or a veteran who just lost their jobs in their 40s and 50s, or a newly graduate first-time entrepreneur opening a restaurant with days of cash flows left. I mean, the crisis is real, and not just in papers or not just some statistics. Definitely, it shows the immediate pain and fragility of our social fabric, but also it reveals a structural issue of our institutions incapable of responding to our citizens' needs. And that's why there's a need to enable the legislature to continue to function in the midst of the global health emergency.
And so far, what do you like to propose to the government in terms of trying to alleviate all the financial difficulty for people?
I mean, in times like this, the role of Parliament in a meaningful and functional democracy is extremely essential. And that's why we have publicly asked for an ad hoc parliamentary session for a few reasons. I think first is to amplify the voice of the marginalized, and that margin is pretty big. Hopefully that we have some of the, that we can be voice of the voiceless, so that the government can hear them. And second is to speed up the Ramadan budget to help those who are affected by the government lockdown measures. And third is to check, challenge, and to approve the budget of the government, providing vital oversight and transparency for each legislative body. As I mentioned above, we want to speed up the processes of the budget that needs to be sped up, but also to debate about checks and balances of those initiatives that are in midterm or long-term. In short, to be crisp and concise, the government initiative and action need to be faster, easier, and more comprehensive. And we'll talk about that a little bit later of what our party proposes.
Yeah. So, but it's quite clear that the government has not responded positively to the proposal for an extraordinary House session. So, what would be the alternative for the voice of the opposition, the politicians, to be heard?
Oh, well, it's still an ongoing effort. I mean, that, yes, you are right, that the government declined the request, and the Constitution stipulates that we require 1/3 of the Parliament's number of MPs and senators, and that number is 246 to my recollection. And our party, Move Forward Party, all of our 54 MPs have signed the request for the ad hoc session. Still waiting for the remaining head counts, but the question is still, what do we go from here? But as of now, we are hitting the streets. My job is not just in the parliament, it's also outside the parliament. So I haven't been working from home. I've been responsibly hitting the streets and hearing stories from people who lost their jobs and the owner of small SME companies to match that to the budget that the government has proposed. And by the way, this is the first time that I'm reading the budget without a strategy. You know what I'm trying to say? Usually in any organization, the budget reflects the strategy. I'm sure Thai PBS, yourself, when we were analyzing your annual report, you started off with your vision, and then your strategy as a strategic response to the problems you are facing in the disruption of the media, and then the budget. But as of now, we have some information about the budget, but it doesn't reflect the roadmap or the plan to take Thailand out of this crisis. So that's why we were pushing so hard for that ad hoc parliamentary session, so that we could debate, we could discuss, we could speed things up that needs to be sped up, and we could talk about things in a more prudent way, because the laws and the loans that were passed, the deadline is September next year. Read my lips.
So how do you see the
the loans is September next year. So hopefully there's elements inside that we could talk, we could debate, we could discuss, and then include the citizens' needs into that process. But yes, if you need to do that cash transfer, we'll definitely facilitate and expedite that process. Even 1 week, even 2 weeks, even days. I mean, I've never expected Thailand's inequality to be on steroids like this, that I could feel it. 7 days for you and me, and 7 hours for some people, and 7 days it's a long time for people who are having their debt outside of the door knocking, asking for the return of the money. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
But how do you see the prospect of the proposal for the extraordinary House session by the opposition materializes? Do you see any hope of the government finally agreeing to have it?
No, the government was clear. So like I explained to you, there's two ways. The government could do it themselves, or we need 1/3 of the parliamentary votes to open it up. So we've been trying with the opposition parties to do the second part. as well as pressuring the government to do the first part. If both options fail, we will hit the streets and do what we can do in districts that voted for us or not voted for us, to do something like food banks. Hopefully, if they don't get the cash that they deserve, hopefully they still have food or the important priorities in their lives to go on for the next 100 days. That's what we're trying to do, as well as coordinating with local governments to help those in need in times of hardship like this. And secondly, the reason why I'm on your show is because if I can't talk or if I can't speak in the parliament, and that's why I come to you in the media to be the voiceless and speak what kind of hope is postponed, what kind of assistance is canceled, and what kind of dreams is shattered in this challenge that defines our generation going forward.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, because as a public broadcaster, Thai PBS is more than happy to be a platform for everyone in the society to share his or her ideas on how this situation should be dealt with. So you're in the right place.
That's music to my ears. So I think you both agree that the big question, or the critical question, is where do we go from here for the next 100 days, right? I mean, the past 100 days has been unprecedented, and there have been a lot of glitches, and I think it's the first time in my life, I don't know about your lives, but it's the first time in my life that the Thai citizens who pay taxes through progressive personal or VAT is systematically abandoned by the way, or by the approach of the government. And I know we have limited time, but if we take that as one example of cash transfers, I'm sure both of you as journalists have been hearing about. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's been one of the biggest challenges facing the government now.
But I think both of you as journalists have been hearing all around the world that cash transfer is the main mechanism as Ramadan action to subsidize people who have to sacrifice and lose their jobs from the government's lockdown measures. And to me, there's two ways you could do this cash transfer. You could filter out people, or you could filter in people. You could do it exclusively, or you can do it inclusively. In case of countries like South Korea or Singapore, they filter out people.
Okay.
So they do it universally to the entire nation and exclude some people out. In South Korea, they go to the entire nation, they're suffering equally, universally, and exclude out the top 20 or top 30 people out. Yeah. This is filtering out, cash transfer. Okay. In Singapore, the solidarity payment taxed 90% of the Singaporeans, and about 10% is excluded out. And I'm sure you understand Thailand is the opposite of that. And we use the filtering in approach by proving how poor you are, by proving your occupation, by using an incoherent databases to cause confusion and conflict within the society. So yes, now the government started off with 3 million to 9 million to 14 million to 16 million and 10 million farmers. It's still better than the first day of the past 100 days that we've passed. But going forward, for the next 100 days, the government definitely needs a 100-day agenda where they have an equilibrium of the public health, the social welfare, as well as the economy. In short term, which is the first 100 days, in medium term, which is month 4 to 6, and then in the long term, which is 6 months from now. And then we can have that planning and that vision and that political inclusion and social inclusion so that we would not repeat the same mistakes
So คุณพิธา
loss that have been lives in the past.
Yeah. คุณพิธา what 100 days you see if we have the same path that the government has been doing right now, and what would you like to see differently, and what's the measure you would like to see different approach to have different scenario in the next 100 days?
Okay, so let me break down your question and structure them in that dimensions that I have stated earlier. In terms of social welfare, I believe the first 3 months the government has done their job, so I'm not going to cause any more confusion with what they've done. But the next 100 days, from month 4 to month 6, we propose universal subsidy to all Thais. You know, it will, regardless of whether there will be a pandemic or no pandemic, people are suffering. If you're 18 or above, that's about 50 million Thais. You will get 3,000 baht of direct cash transfer. Also, if you have an extra need of, if you have children, if you have a child or a children that relies on you, you will also get an additional top-up of 1,000 baht. And we have calculated total amount to be 500 billion baht extra, and that will come from next year's normal budget. Next year's normal budget is 3.3 trillion. We have worked with the parliamentary budget committee that there are reshuffling things that are not necessary, that's not immediate. We will settle out that extra 500,000 million so that people can have a transitional period from the month 4 to 6. That's the first part, social welfare part. I feel like it's not enough. It's not fast enough. It's not easy. It's not inclusive enough. For the second part of the public health side, the government has set aside 45,000 million, right? Yeah, million. And I think I want them to focus on 2 or 3 things. The first thing is to prevent a second spread of pandemic of what our neighbors are facing. Singapore is facing, Germany is facing, Hokkaido is facing. So that's probably where the focus or the priority of that budget would be. Second thing that not a lot of people have been discussing, and I want to add and contribute, is national strategic stockpile. We need to know how many ventilators we have. We need to know how many critical equipments that is vital to lives we have, as well as disposable stockpiles such as masks and PPEs and PCRs, so that we can ensure that our capacity of public health is strong enough when we open the economy. The third thing is on vaccines. We are very much left behind in terms of vaccine developments. There are 70 centers all around the world. China is doing it, Germany is doing it, Hong Kong is doing it, and they're pouring billions of dollars into this research. And I look quickly in the budget, the National Vaccine Institute of Thailand has the budget of 27 million baht. Again, 27 million baht when it comes to vaccine research and development. I hope that this budget expedited into our own capabilities so that we can control our destiny when it comes to a pandemic like this. So that would be my 2 cents worth on the public health side. On the economy side, I don't think we need to touch much as of now, but you hope definitely understand the current situation of the economy. Usually we've been through many crises before, and if you look that into science or fiction, you see that it's always a V-shaped recovery, whether it's the financial crisis, whether it's a hamburger crisis, whether it's the flood crisis, you can see that our economy has enough resilience to come back. It's usually something very focused in Asia, something very famous in debt market in America, and some supply chain within the central part of Thailand. But this is a global pandemic that starts in China and moves to Europe and into America, and now Southeast Asia might not be able to escape the word epicenter of the spread. If you consider what's going on in Singapore, what's going on in Indonesia, what's going on in the Philippines, the numbers in Malaysia yesterday, and you consider how dependent Thai economy to the international markets, exports, imports, trade, and tourism. That's something that we also need to jumpstart and strategize on the recovery strategy for these things, and definitely the dependency of our own local economy, of our own local market, and see where our competitive advantage of the nation is in the new world going forward. So that I'll stop there for your question. That's
certainly.
in three dimensions that needs to
I think the three dimensions of your suggestions are quite interesting. It would certainly, for me, it would be a missed opportunity for the government not to be able to sit down and listen to this kind of suggestion, ideas from opposition MPs. Because I don't think these ideas certainly make sense and it's cover all the aspects of the crisis that we are facing. So in the absence of an extraordinary House session, so how would you put forward these ideas to the government then?
We've been signing letters to the Prime Minister various times, to the Ministry of Finance various times. This Friday will be May Day, Labor Day. Our labor wing will go to either the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Labor and voice the pain and tear and sweat of the laborers. Hopefully they'll start to have a dialogue with us. We don't want to wait until next month. I think the Parliament is 22nd. We'll re-intervene in 22nd, but the first debate will be on 28th, and that's a month away. The government might be able to wait, but people of Thailand, majority of people of Thailand might not be able to wait that long. We are holding our breaths here.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Khun Pita, you just mentioned that probably we are going to see new world order, or perhaps we still have to think how Thailand is related internationally in the world economic order. But with this COVID-19, do you foresee totally unprecedented future for Thailand? Like perhaps we have to be back to more local economy rather than relying too much on global economy. What's the future? What's your vision?
First of all, I don't know about you too, but it's for myself, I start to smell the sentiment of anti-globalization, of national isolation, Russia with Saudi Arabia, China and America, and China and India, and Germany and America, for example. We have to start thinking about building a grassroots economy as opposed to relying on our export markets and international tourists. And that, in one sentence, Thailand cannot just be Bangkok, and Bangkok cannot just be Thailand. It has to be a less congested amount of wealth, a less congested amount of activities, a less congested amount of wealth of budget. For example, let me be clear on what I'm trying to say. We have about 2.8 trillion baht from tourism. That revenue that comes to our country is so consolidated and congested into a few cities. Wouldn't you agree? Like Bangkok or Pattaya or Phuket.
A handful of tourist destinations.
in terms of destinations and also the recipients of that tourist, or not tourist dollars, right? Tourist dollars, right? But I think we have a lot of offerings for safe tourism, for hygiene tourism, for healthy tourism that the New World Order might desire. A city that is less congested, that allows proper social distancing, somewhere that is quiet and good for the mind, a city that is well equipped with a public health capacity, a city with a direct airport that does not allow you to travel across cities. I'm thinking about cities like Phrae, Phayao, Satun, Trang, these cities that arguably majority of our tourists wouldn't be thinking about. And
second-tier cities, they're second-tier cities for tourism,
Second-tier cities. It used to be a second-tier cities in the past without the pandemic. But with the pandemic, with the hygiene concerns, with the social distancing measures, we need to distribute out tourists. And if we have something strong, solid, and aligned with their new needs, I think we have a way to more or less recover our tourism industry as well as spread out. And that would be a new phase of tourism where everybody can benefit from that.
So what you mean is that we should not be too overjoyed by the news that the Chinese tourists have come knocking on our doors again, right?
Yes, Thailand is pretty strong on tourism. We've been number one in the world in terms of cities and countries. So when people want to leave their home, they think about Thailand. But we have to be proactive and think about, be smart and be strategic, and how we can capitalize on the current situation and maximize the revenue from this tourism that is not just congested on the top, as well as spread it out throughout the grassroots economy as throughout the nations. Agritourismo. I'm sure both of you have been to Italy and you've heard the term agriturismo, and that's agriculture and tourism together. That's designed for people who are looking for something new, something more outdoor, something more challenged, something less crowded. To me, that jives with what we can expect, or we can assume that it will be in the minds and hearts of travelers, be it Chinese or non-Chinese. By the way, we need to diversify.
Definitely.
We can't just be reliant on one country, whether it's trade or tourism. We need to be able to think about more destinations, so that we don't put one egg in the basket, and if something hits the fan, and then we lose that amount of revenue right away and employment right away. So,
and I think the whole crisis. The whole crisis, the Pita, I think, is a good wake-up call that should make us rethink all aspects of our economy and strategies. Now we have this so-called 20-year strategy, right? But with this crisis, I think we certainly need to sit down and then take another look at the strategy we have, whether or not they conform with the realities of the present-day situation and what will transpire afterward.
Well, to respond to you, firstly, stars shine brighter in darkness. Something that we've been waiting to do, restructuring of our public service sector, restructuring of our database on the linkages between the government and the people. The use of our national ID card has to be more than just what we put on the Xerox, and it has to be linked to an account for the unbankables and things like that. Yes, it's a wake-up call for a lot of work that has been put under wrap for the past 50 years that's structurally ingrained in our society. But secondly, I think it's a time for us to unite together and try to overcome this and take Thailand out of this crisis as minimal pain as possible. Yes, it's time to rethink. Amazing Thailand can be healthy Thailand. How's that in a concise and a crisp answer? Every country is amazing. Wouldn't you agree? Amazing India, amazing Australia, but
in their own way,
to some countries to have food that is healthy for you in terms of prevention, and a strong hospital system that is a good cure, and prevention is better than cure. And if we align our strategy in that sense, and the public relations and the marketing is just something that's superficial on top of what we really think that is our national strategy as bones of our country, and we can have some public relations and some marketing and some rebranding for Thailand, so that it works so that the economy works for everybody and just not a few.
Okay, that probably can be another striking logo or label about Thailand, healthy Thailand. Thank you very much, Kun Tim Pita, for joining us in English version, but please carry on and stay on with us because we would like to carry on talking to you in Thai.
ครับได้ครับด้วยความยินดีครับ
เอาละค่ะกลับมาพบกับไทย PBS World Tonight กันต่อนะคะเมื่อสักครู่นี้ได้รับฟังวิสัยทัศน์มุมมองจากคุณพิธาลิ้มเจริญรัตน์ภาษาอังกฤษไปแล้วนะคะช่วงนี้คุยกันต่อเป็นภาษาไทยค่ะสวัสดีค่ะคุณพิธาคะเช็คยูทาม
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ
ขอบคุณที่ร่วมรายการนะครับสงสัยได้เวลาที่คุณพิธาต้องไปตัดผมแล้วนะ
ต้องไปทำอะไรนะครับ
ตัดผมแล้วอาทิตย์นี้ต้องตัดผมได้แล้วค่อยเปิด
ได้ครับเช่นขอบคุณครับผมจะรีบไปตัด
ชีวิตจะเป็นยังไงบ้างครับในช่วงที่ต้องอยู่แบบล็อกดาวน์แต่ว่าคุณพิธาก็ไม่ได้ล็อกดาวน์อยู่ที่บ้านตลอดเวลาใช่ไหมแล้วว่าก็เห็นลงพื้นที่ไปพบปะกับผู้คนชุมชนทั้งหลายเนี่ยแล้วก็ผมก็เชื่อว่าคุณพิธาก็คงได้พูดกับคนไทยเยอะมากเลยในช่วงเวลาที่ผ่านมาลองเล่าให้ฟังบ้างสิครับว่าสิ่งที่ได้ยินมาสิ่งที่ชาวบ้านสะท้อนมานี่เป็นยังไง
ครับก็ช่วง 2-3 อาทิตย์ที่แล้วที่ตัวเลขลดลงแล้วก็คิดว่าสามารถที่จะลงพื้นที่ได้อย่างมีความรับผิดชอบโดยการใส่มาสก์แล้วก็ใส่เครื่องป้องกันเวลาที่เจอกับผู้คนเนี่ยแน่นอนว่าก็ต้องลงไปช่วยบรรเทาทุกข์เล็กๆน้อยๆเรื่องของข้าวสารอาหารแห้งเรื่องของยาพูดคุยกับผู้ป่วยติดเตียงพูดกับน้องๆที่ไม่ได้ไปโรงเรียนแล้วก็รับฟังปัญหาซึ่งตอนแรกๆก็เป็นปัญหาที่ฟังแล้วดูเหมือนจะผิวเผินนะครับเมื่อฟังครั้งแรกๆทำไมฉันไม่ได้ 5,000 ทำไมวินมอเตอร์ไซค์ผมมี50คันแล้วเพื่อนผม10คนได้ 5,000 แล้วผมไม่ได้ 5,000 แต่เมื่อมันฟังไปเรื่อยๆแล้วเนี่ยมันเป็นเรื่องของช่องว่างระหว่างสังคมที่มันเริ่มเห็นชัดเรื่อยๆแล้วก็ได้คุยกับชนชั้นกลางไม่ว่าจะเป็นผู้ประกอบการหรือเป็นเจ้าของธุรกิจเล็กๆน้อยๆได้คุยกับน้องๆนักศึกษาที่มีความฝันที่จะเปิดร้านอาหารเป็นครั้งแรกเมื่อเดือนธันวาแล้ว4เดือนผ่านไปก็มาเจอโควิดมีสายป่านอยู่เหลืออยู่20กว่าวันเนี่ยคำว่าชักหน้าไม่ถึงหลังคำว่าฝนตกไม่ทั่วฟ้าเนี่ยมันก็เป็นคำพูดที่ได้ยินมาจากพี่น้องประชาชนเยอะก็เลยทำให้ผมเนี่ยเริ่มคิดว่าในเฉพาะหน้าเนี่ยวันต่อวันจะช่วยอะไรได้บ้างแล้วก็ยังคิดถึงการใช้รัฐสภาให้เป็นประโยชน์ในฐานะที่ผมเป็นผู้แทนราษฎรหน้าที่มันก็มีหลักๆอยู่แค่ 2-3 อย่างใช่ไหมครับรัฐสภาที่ทรงเกียรติที่ศักดิ์สิทธิ์ที่สามารถทำงานได้เนี่ยก็ต้องเป็นที่ให้ผู้แทนราษฎรสามารถพูดถึงปัญหาของราษฎรได้เป็นที่ที่สามารถออกกฎหมายได้แล้วก็เป็นที่ที่สามารถที่จะพูดคุยตรวจสอบรัฐบาลได้จริงๆหน้าที่ของหลักของรัฐสภาก็มีอยู่แค่นี้ผมได้รับเงินภาษีจากพี่น้องประชาชนให้มีหน้าที่ทำอยู่3อย่างนี้ต้องทำให้ดีที่สุดแต่ถ้า3อย่างนี้มันมีเรื่องของการเมืองเข้ามาเกี่ยวข้องทำให้ผมปฏิบัติหน้าที่ไม่ได้ก็เป็นหน้าที่ของผมที่จะอย่างน้อยใช้ร่วมมือกับพี่น้องสื่อมวลชนแล้วก็พูดถึงความเจ็บปวดของประชาชนที่ถูกที่ตกหล่นในสังคมแล้วก็นอกสภาก็ต้องใช้เท้าเดินแล้วก็ลงไปหาประชาชนช่วยเขาในสิ่งที่ผมแล้วก็พรรคก้าวไกลพอที่จะมีกำลังช่วยไม่ว่าจะการเริ่ม ทำธนาคารอาหารแล้วก็ช่วยหาอาหารแห้งช่วยหาผลไม้จากเกษตรกรที่ส่งออกไม่ได้ขายได้ตอนนี้แล้วเอาอันนี้มาทำอยู่ในธนาคารอาหารแล้วก็ช่วยคนที่ไม่สามารถช่วยตัวเองได้ในช่วงนี้ซึ่งแน่นอนว่าท่านทั้งสองเป็นทำอยู่ในสายข่าวก็คงจะได้ยินเรื่องราวที่มันทำให้จิตใจห่อเหี่ยวไปได้ไม่น้อยไปกว่าผมนะไม่ว่าจะเป็น
คุณพิธาหมายความว่าความพยายามที่จะให้มีการเปิดประชุมวิสามัญเนี่ยถือว่าจบแล้วใช่ไหมครับมันในเมื่อรัฐบาลไม่ได้ตอบรับมาเลย
อย่างที่เรียนที่เป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะครับการที่รัฐธรรมนูญ 60 บอกว่าจะเปิดวิสามัญได้ทำได้2 ทางคือทางแรกถ้าครม.ยื่นหนังสือไปทางประธานสภาเนี่ยก็สามารถที่จะเปิดได้เลยแล้วก็เร็วแล้วพรก.กู้ก็มีกระบวนการของเขาพรบ.โอนงบปี 63 ก็มีกระบวนการของเขาถ้าครม.ประชุมเร็วแล้วสามารถที่จะเปิดประชุมได้เร็วมีการประชุมด่วนให้สสกับสวช่วยกันให้คำปรึกษาให้คำแนะนำแล้วก็สามารถที่จะผ่านได้เร็วเนี่ยเงินที่มันควรจะเร็วมันก็จะได้เร็วแต่ในขณะเดียวกันมันก็มีเงินกู้ที่เยอะครั้งหนึ่งที่สุดในประวัติศาสตร์ที่ไม่ได้ต้องการความรวดเร็วในการที่จะทำให้เงินไปถึงกระเป๋าของพี่น้องประชาชนก็มีอยู่แล้วในพรก.กู้เงินเนี่ยบอกว่ากู้ได้ถึงกันยาเดือนหน้าเพราะฉะนั้นมันก็มีเวลาเป็นปีกว่าถูกไหมครับถ้าในเรื่องของเงินฟื้นฟูหรือเงินบางเรื่องเนี่ยมันก็มีสิ่งที่สามารถที่จะให้ผมแล้วก็เพื่อนๆสสแล้วก็สวสามารถที่จะช่วยกันแนะนำรัฐบาลช่วยกันคิดให้รอบคอบอะไรที่มันต้องมีเร็วช้าหนักเบาครับคุณผู้ชมอะไรที่มันเร็วต้องหนักมันต้องเร็วต้องหนักแล้วมันก็ต้องยอมรับว่ามันต้องมีข้อผิดพลาดอะไรที่มันต้องเบาต้องช้าเพราะว่ามันคือเงินภาษีของลูกหลานของท่านผู้ดำเนินรายการทั้ง2 ท่านที่ต้องมาใช้เงินก้อนนี้มันก็ต้องให้คนช่วยกันดูช่วยกันคิดแล้วนั่นมันเป็นหน้าที่ของนิติบัญญัติอยู่แล้วซึ่งในพรก.เก่าๆในรัฐบาลเก่าๆปี 60 เนี่ยไอ้ตรงกรอบการใช้เงินเนี่ยก็ยังต้องเข้ารัฐสภาแต่ของชุดนี้ไม่ต้องเข้าเพราะฉะนั้นผมก็จะไม่สามารถได้รับรู้รายละเอียดเลยแล้วก็จะมารู้กันอีกทีน่าจะเดือนพฤศจิกายนว่าเอาแหล่งเงินมาจากไหนย้ำนะครับแค่เอาแหล่งเงินมาจากไหนไม่ได้บอกว่าจะเอาเงินไปใช้อะไรด้วยซ้ำซึ่งก็
คือถ้าที่ฟังสิ่งที่คุณพิธาพยายามเสนอมาแล้วก็ความเห็นในวันนี้ดูเหมือนว่าความเป็นห่วงที่มีต่อวิธีการจัดการแก้ปัญหาตัวไอ้เจ้าไวรัสนี้โดยตรงเนี่ยไม่ค่อยน่าเป็นห่วงเท่าไหร่นักครับเข้าใจว่าคุณพิธาคงจะเห็นคล้อยกับมาตรการหลายอย่างที่ทำอยู่แล้วใช่ไหมครับแต่ว่าอาจจะมีความเป็นห่วงต่อวิธีการ
ครับขอโทษครับเชิญเลย
ครับก็คุณพิธาดูเหมือนจะมีความเป็นห่วงต่อวิธีการแก้ปัญหาผลกระทบทางด้านเศรษฐกิจกับการเยียวยาของให้กับผู้คนที่ได้รับความเดือดร้อนจากผลกระทบทางเศรษฐกิจมากกว่าใช่ไหมครับ
ก็ไม่เชิงนะครับผมก็ยังคิดว่าเราประมาทไม่ได้สำหรับในเรื่องของสาธารณสุขเนี่ยผมก็คงไม่มีอะไรมากไปกว่าคำชื่นชมให้กับความเสียสละกับความสามารถแล้วก็ความมีประสิทธิภาพของบุคลากรแพทย์ของประเทศไทยแล้วผมก็รู้ดีว่าผมเป็นพ่อมีลูกเหมือนกันเนี่ยผมรู้ดีว่าพวกเขาต้องเสียสละแค่ไหนแล้วเขาก็เหนื่อยแค่ไหนเขาก็มีวันที่เขาไม่ไหวเหมือนกันนี่มันก็60 70 80เกือบจะ100 วันมาแล้วที่เขาต้องทำงานกันอย่างไม่หยุดไม่หย่อนเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเราก็ต้องคำนึงถึงในแง่ของสาธารณสุขว่าจะทำยังไงให้การแพร่เชื้อโรคครั้งที่2ไม่เกิดขึ้นเราก็ต้องทำให้มั่นใจว่าคำว่าคลังสาธารณสุขของเราเนี่ยมันพร้อมสำหรับหน้าฝนที่กำลังจะมาถึงต้องอย่าลืมนะครับว่าหน้าฝนนี่อีก 45,000 คนโดยเฉลี่ยที่จะเป็นไข้หวัดใหญ่ที่จะเป็นไข้เลือดออกที่จะเป็นปอดบวมคำถามที่จะต้องมีกับรัฐบาลควรที่จะมาพูดกับประชาชนว่าเราพร้อมแค่ไหนเรามีเครื่องปั๊มหัวใจอยู่เท่าไหร่เรามีห้อง ICU อยู่เท่าไหร่เรามี negative pressure room เท่าไหร่รวมถึงเรื่องของอุปกรณ์แพทย์ที่ใช้แล้วทิ้งอย่างหน้ากากอย่างชุด PPE ที่จะเอาให้เมื่อเราเปิดเมืองแล้วเนี่ยสามารถที่จะมีการใช้เครื่องมือที่เหมาะสมมี mass testing ที่ยังจะสามารถดำเนินต่อไปมีเครื่องมือที่จะสามารถที่จะทำให้ social distancing หรือว่ามีมาตรการในการที่จะทำให้คนเนี่ยสามารถใช้ชีวิตแบบว่าไม่ทำให้เกิดโรคระบาดรอบที่2ได้แต่ในแง่ของนั่นคือในแง่ของพิษโควิดแต่ในแง่ของพิษเศรษฐกิจเนี่ยผมเป็นเริ่มครั้งหลังๆเนี่ยเวลาพูดถึงเศรษฐกิจต้องพูดถึงสวัสดิการแล้วก็เรื่องของเศรษฐกิจแยกกันไปเพราะว่าผ เวลาเราพูดคุยกันเนี่ยคนต่อคนในพื้นที่เดียวกันเนี่ยข้ามสะพานไปเนี่ยยังมีคนที่คิดว่ากลางวันนี้จะสั่งแอปยี่ห้อไหนสั่งอาหารอะไรกับข้ามสะพานมาก็มีคนอีกกลุ่มหนึ่งที่กำลังคิดว่าไอ้ปลาทูตัวเดียวกับลูกอีก5 คนเนี่ยจะทำยังไงให้กินได้ทั้งมื้อกลางวันแล้วก็มื้อเย็นเพราะฉะนั้นผมถึงได้แยกออกระหว่าง social welfare economy แล้วก็สวัสดิการแล้วก็เศรษฐกิจก็อีกเรื่องหนึ่งแล้วก็หนักหนาสาหัสไม่น้อยเช่นเดียวกันแต่ว่าในเรื่องของสวัสดิการที่เราใช้ระบบกรองคนเข้าใช่ไหมครับสมมติอันนี้เป็นคนที่ได้รับความยากลำบากแล้วเรากรองคนเข้าโดยการมีเว็บไซต์ชื่อเราไม่ทิ้งกันแล้วก็ใช้ AI แล้วก็ใช้อาชีพบ้างใช้อะไรบ้างแล้วตอนแรกก็แก้วใบนี้ก็แค่3 ล้านคนแล้วก็กลายเป็น9 ล้านคนแล้วก็กลายเป็น14 ล้านคนแล้วก็กลายเป็น16 ล้านคนแล้วก็บวกเกษตรกรไปอีก3 ล้านคนในที่สุดแต่ในขณะเดียวกันถ้าอีก3 เดือนข้างหน้าเราก็รู้อยู่แล้วว่าเราไม่พร้อมระบบเรามีปัญหาคนไม่มีบัญชีเยอะคนที่เข้าถึงมือถือยังไม่มียังมีคนไร้บ้านที่มือถือยังไม่มีเลยอย่าว่าแต่อะไรเลยเนี่ยคือต้องมาเอาข้าวตอนกลางวันแล้วนั่งรถเมล์หนีเคอร์ฟิวตอน2 ทุ่มผมก็เจอมาคนอย่างเงี้ยที่ตกหล่นเนี่ยเราจะช่วยยังไงผมได้คิดว่าไอ้วิธีคิดแบบเศรษฐศาสตร์เก่าๆที่ผมเคยเรียนมาที่ธรรมศาสตร์หรือว่าที่เมืองนอกเนี่ยต้องเลิกคิดไปเพราะเวลาเราพูดกันเรื่อง helicopter money หรือว่า cash transfer นี่เศรษฐศาสตร์ยุคสมัยผมจะไม่ชอบแต่ตอนนี้มันสถานการณ์มันเปลี่ยนแล้วเราก็ต้องคิดว่าถ้าเกิดนี่คือคนที่มีปัญหาปากท้องทั้งประเทศน่าจะ 99% ของประเทศไทยถ้าจะพูดขนาดนั้นหรือ 70% ของประเทศไทยจะพูดขนาดนั้นก็น่าจะเป็นการอนุมานที่มันไม่ได้ผิดนะแล้วเราดึงออกเราคัดออกอันที่หนึ่งก็คือคัดผมออกคัดข้าราชการออกคัดคนที่ไม่ได้มีปัญหาเรื่องการตกงานหรือเรื่องที่เงินเดือนถูกลดออกแล้วก็คัดคนที่รวยออกแล้วคัดคนที่ไม่ต้องการออกเนี่ยผมคิดว่ามันจะทำให้เร็วมากขึ้นเพราะฉะนั้นเดือนที่4ถึงเดือนที่6หลังจากที่รัฐบาลทำนี้เนี่ยผมเสนอรัฐบาลดังๆผ่านรายการของทั้ง2 ท่านไว้ว่าน่าจะมีการเยียวยาอย่างทั่วหน้าทั้งประเทศอาจจะในจำนวนเงินที่เล็กลงหน่อยแต่ว่าเยียวยาทุกคนเราก็ต้องยอมรับว่าแต่ละครอบครัวบางคนเนี่ยเขามีลูกมีหลานที่ไปโรงเรียนไม่ได้เนี่ยเขามีความลำบากถ้าคุณเป็นคนโสดแล้วมีเงินอยู่คนเดียว 5,000 คุณอาจจะพออยู่ได้ซึ่งก็ยังลำบากมากอยู่แต่อีกคนหนึ่งที่มีทั้งภรรยาและลูกอีก 4-5 คนที่ผมเจอมาในชุมชนแออัดในคลองเตยเนี่ยเขาอาจจะต้องขอเพิ่มอีก 1,000 ซึ่งรวมกันนี่มันประมาณแค่ 500,000 กว่าล้านถ้าเราเอางบประมาณปี64ที่มันมีอยู่ 3.3 ล้านแล้วเราเอางบประมาณดูสัมมนาเดินทางต่างประเทศอะไรที่มันเกี่ยวข้องกับความมั่นคงของชาติในเชิงที่มันอาจจะไม่ใช่เป็นความมั่นคงของโลกใบใหม่นิยามของความมั่นคงของโลกใบใหม่ผมไม่รู้ว่าทั้ง2 ท่านเห็นด้วยไหมมันอาจจะไม่ใช่เป็นแค่เรื่องของการทหารหรือว่าเรื่องของเศรษฐกิจอย่างเดียวมันจะเป็นเรื่องของสาธารณสุขความมั่นคงทางสาธารณสุขมันจะเป็นเรื่องของความมั่นคงทางสิ่งแวดล้อมซะมากกว่าถ้าเราจัดบัดเจ็ตผมคิดว่ามันยังมีเงินที่จะให้ประชาชนยังสามารถที่จะสู้ต่อไปได้
คุณพิธาเข้าใจความเป็นห่วงของคุณพิธานะคะแล้วต้องขอโทษมากๆเพราะว่ารายการเราเวลากำลังใกล้จะหมดอยากให้คุณพิธาสรุปค่ะเพราะว่าตอนนี้พอจะเข้าใจวิสัยทัศน์แล้วก็แนวทางการแก้ไขปัญหาของคุณพิธาเมื่อสักครู่คุณพิธาบอกว่าเห็นเด็กเล็กๆเวลาออกไปข้างนอกแล้วรู้สึกเป็นห่วงเรื่องอนาคตตอนนี้สื่อสารกับลูกสาวอย่างไรคะเรื่องโควิด -19 เรื่องของแนวทางที่จะมองเห็นอนาคตของลูกอะค่ะขอสั้นๆช่วงปิดท้ายรายการเลยค่ะ
อันนี้เนี่ยก็คือเขาถามตลอดว่าคุณพ่อออกไปไหนทำไมไม่อยู่กับเขาพ่อก็บอกว่าพ่อต้องไปทำงานไปหาประชาชนแล้วก็คอยส่งรูปส่งวิดีโอมาให้เขาดูว่าตอนนี้พ่ออยู่ไหนแล้วก็พ่อทำอะไรอยู่นอกจากนักการเมืองแล้วผมก็เป็นพ่อเหนือสิ่งอื่นใดแล้วก็ยังมีความจำเป็นที่จะคอยทำให้เขาเข้าใจแล้วก็สอนเขาแต่คำว่าสอนของผมเนี่ยมันไม่ใช่เป็นเรื่องของการศึกษาอย่างเดียวว่าเลขคืออะไรสังคมคืออะไรแต่ว่ามันเป็นการสอนให้เขามีจิตสาธารณะเป็นในตัวว่าเนี่ยมีช้างที่ตอนนี้เนี่ยป่วยแล้วก็ไม่ได้ข้าวกินนะพี่พิมพ์เพราะว่ามันมีโรคโควิดนี้ขึ้นมาลูกสาวผมก็จะบอกว่า Daddy then I want to bring apples for the elephants เนี่ยก็คือเป็นสิ่งที่ต้องเป็นการปลูกฝังเขานอกจากเรื่องของวิชาการอย่างเดียว นอกเหนือจากเรื่องอะไรที่มันเป็นการศึกษาตามปกติเนี่ยแต่ผมคิดว่าความมีจิตสาธารณะความมีจิตเอื้ออาทรตรงนี้เนี่ยมันเป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญเขาถามผมว่า Daddy what's going on next ก็คือคุณพ่อขาเดี๋ยวอีกหน่อยจะเกิดอะไรขึ้นผมก็บอกว่าโอเคพี่พิม you have to be strong and be kind แน่นอนว่าถ้าในพี่พิมอาจจะเจอพ่อน้อยลงแต่ว่าก็ไม่ได้เพราะว่าพ่อรักหนูน้อยลงนะแต่ว่า ก็ยังเป็นคอยสอนคอยเล่นแล้วก็คอยสอนบทเรียนที่มันเกิดขึ้นในวิกฤตนี้เด็กรุ่นนี้เป็น generation C ครับ generation COVID ผมแบบไม่ใช่เป็นmillennialแล้วเป็น generation ออกไปก็ผมคิดว่าสำคัญนะครับในเรื่องการสอนให้เขามีจิตสาธารณะแล้วก็คิดถึง outward thinking หรือว่าคิดถึงคนอื่นมากกว่าตัวเองเพราะว่าต้องยอมรับว่าตอนนี้มันมีคนอยู่2กลุ่มที่โอเคกับกลุ่มที่ไม่โอเคใช่ไหมถ้ากลุ่มที่โอเคก็เราก็แน่นอนเราต้องมีสติกับมันแล้วก็สู้กับมันแต่ในขณะเดียวกันก็ต้องมองซ้ายมองขวาว่ามีใครที่เขาต้องการส่วนกลุ่มคนที่ไม่โอเคเนี่ยก็ต้องพูดเลยว่าไม่ต้องเกรงใจนะไม่ต้องเคอะเขินนะพูดกับเราเรียกร้องมาว่าท่านต้องการอะไรเรียกร้องมาว่าท่านต้องการนมเรียกร้องมาว่าท่านต้องการให้พ่ออ้อมให้กับคุณพ่อคุณแม่ที่เป็นผู้ป่วยติดเตียงให้เราผ่านไปด้วยกันเพราะว่าถ้าอย่างนั้นเนี่ยมันไม่มีทางที่สังคมไทยจะอยู่ได้แล้วก็นิยามความเป็นไทยเนี่ยอาจจะต้องมานั่งคิดกันใหม่ซึ่งวิธีเดียวที่จะทำกันได้ก็คือให้2กลุ่มนี้เนี่ยทำหน้าที่ของตัวเองแล้วผมก็จะหวังว่าลูกโตขึ้นจะภูมิใจมากถ้าลูกผมโตขึ้นแล้วเขาอาจจะไม่เก่งไม่เก่งวิทยาศาสตร์ไม่เก่งภาษาอังกฤษแต่คำนึงถึงคนอื่นพอๆกับที่เขาคำนึงถึงตัวเองครับ
นี่คือสิ่งที่สังคมไทยต้องการอย่างมากคุณพิธาคนที่เข้าใจคนอื่นแล้วก็มีความเห็นอกเห็นใจคนอื่นนะครับขอบคุณมากคุณพิธาความเห็นของคุณพิธากับมุมมองน่าสนใจมากเลยก็หวังว่าจะมีโอกาสได้คุยกันอีกนะครับขณะที่เราเดินไปข้างหน้าแล้วก็เผชิญกับวิกฤตนี้ด้วยกัน
ค่ะต้องขอโทษด้วยที่
เจอกันทั้ง2ท่านในห้องส่งเร็ววันครับ
ครับด้วยความยินดี
ค่ะต้องขอโทษด้วยที่เวลาจำกัดนะคะแต่วันนี้ก็ได้รับฟังมุมมองของคุณพิธาทั้งภาษาอังกฤษและภาษาไทยขอบคุณมากที่ร่วมรายการวันนี้ค่ะและรักษาสุขภาพค่ะ
พูดแทนประชาชนครับขอบคุณ
ค่ะขอบคุณมากค่ะเอาละค่ะลาไปเลยค่ะเราทั้ง3คนคุณพิธาลิ้มเจริญรัตน์คุณเทพชัยหย่องและดิฉันณัฐฐา โกมลวาทินสวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ